Welcome, everyone, to Family Comes First. I'm Vincent J. Russo.
And I'm Victoria Roberts-Drogin. Thank you for joining us today. Vincent, drug abuse and addiction is a chronic, compulsive, relapsing disorder that almost always requires formal treatment.
Drug overdoses have become the leading cause of death of Americans under age 50, with 2/3 of those deaths from opioids. In 2016, 62,000 Americans died from overdoses. By comparison, the figure was 4,000 in 1999, just 17 years ago.
That's incredible. Today, we'll hear from two women who have lost their sons to addiction. They have become fierce advocates and have devoted their lives to helping others who are facing this potentially deadly issue. Fighting Addiction, Part 2, next on Family Comes First. In modern history, we have never seen such a sharp spike in deaths as those we see from drug overdoses in the United States. Experts say 4 out of 5 U.S. heroin users started with prescription opioids, like oxycodone or hydrocodone.
Today on Family Comes First, we are talking with Linda Ventura, who lost her 20-year-old son, Thomas, and Terry Kroll, who lost her 23-year-old son, Timothy. Since then, you have become fierce advocates against drug addiction.
Yes, we have.
And partners. And first, I just have to say I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's almost unimaginable what
It is
you guys have gone
unimaginable.
through, right? So to be here to talk to other parents and other families and to have dedicated what you're doing now, your lives to this, thank you so much. Yeah.
So,
It's our mom job.
Yes.
So as a
Yes.
mom, talk about your sons.
Yeah.
So Thomas was 21 when he passed. He passed 5 years ago on March 14th, 2012. He had just come home from St. Christopher's Inn, and we had an incredible evening, with my kids, and he was looking forward to going back to college and playing men's lacrosse and doing everything that he loved to do. And there is a very stark difference between my son, who struggled with substance use disorder, and my son. So my son, I miss every second of every day. Thomas, struggling with substance use, the addict, I don't like that word, so I try not to use it, is someone that is kidnapped to the drug. And they are not the person that they are true to be. Yeah. They are, lying, deviant thieves who will do whatever it takes to get their next
Because
fix.
they can't help it.
They can't help it.
Right.
Absolutely, they can't help it.
Right. So as a mom, you're holding both.
You're holding both. So but you need to treat both the way they both need to be treated.
And I imagine that's very difficult because you want to treat
tight-
the
tight
child
rope.
you
Balance.
love.
Yeah.
Right, and this is what Tony was talking about in terms of
Yes.
on our previous show about rules and boundaries and enabling behavior.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
Terry, your son?
Timothy was 23, almost 24. He died on August 29th, 2009. And Timothy had enjoyed 8.5 months of sobriety.
Wow.
And unfortunately used on the night of August 28th the same amount he would have used 8.5 months before, which caused a fatal overdose. Timothy, all through school, was part of a group he called, they called themselves Straight Edge. No drinking, no drugs, no smoking. And he was a strong advocate against drugs, and unfortunately suffered from migraine headaches. And I can't call him a doctor, a drug dealer posing as a doctor, led him purposely down this path. Timothy reported that person 4 months before he passed away. And that person was arrested 3 months later after Tim passed away. And that's kind of what led me to realize that that is Timothy's unfortunate legacy, that we had to make change. And if parents like myself and Linda can speak up in a way that we can help to make that change come about, then that's what we have to do for our children. So Timothy's legacy and my mom job for Timothy is to advocate. And you know what? I'm a good mom, so I'm a strong advocator. I have to do what I have to do. And we realize, the two of us, that families need people like Linda and myself to help them through their struggles and
Desperately.
realize there's help there.
Yes.
There's a way to learn to help your child, your loved one, and that's what we've been doing.
Can you share some of the learning steps?
So, again, I know both of us had so Thomas, when Thomas was 15, he's the middle of my 3 children. We lost all 3 grandparents within 3 years, and his dad and I got divorced. So tremendous loss. And he was not a sharer of his feelings, but he did find, and I'm going to stress that it was not heroin that he started with. He started with alcohol and marijuana. So any parent that's listening that wants to say, oh, my kids are only smoking pot and drinking alcohol, that is the biggest lie going.
Not
because
okay.
there's going to be a certain amount of children that are going to be destined to go down the rest of the road. And that's,
What happened?
so that escalated very quickly from age 15, 16. By 18, he was doing heroin. He started with pills first, prescription pills, obtained illegally, but nonetheless he
And
started there.
recreationally with his
and
friends.
then it went straight to, those pills are expensive, so they move on. And
But
that
they're
drug,
already addicted.
they're already addicted.
And that's,
It's such a strong, but they're already addicted when they're smoking pot and drinking. They are looking for the next best feel-good drug.
The least amount of cost.
Least amount of cost,
right?
but they also are looking
Easy.
for a better way to feel. This felt good, but I need more now. So it's always going to be looking for that next best thing.
and unfortunately, it's not that difficult to get.
It's
very
not difficult
easy.
to get. And
They use those lovely gift cards that we give them for Christmas and their birthdays. They can go online. It can be delivered to your home. They're very ingenious.
What do you suggest parents do when they have a child who's fighting this demon,
Yes.
and what are the things they shouldn't do, and what should they be doing?
the first thing they should do is speak out. And the other first thing they should do is not be ashamed or
No
try
shame
and
or
keep this
stigma.
within your 4
Yes.
walls. This is not something that we talk about around the dinner table. Oh, this stays within our 4 walls. It can't.
Right.
You have to speak out, and you have to realize by speaking out, there is somebody that will help you.
To whom?
To anybody.
To
You know,
anybody.
Eileen reached out to me, and I'm able to, I'm networked in this area. If I couldn't help her, I might refer her over to my friend Linda, and Linda can help her in another area. So it's reaching out to anybody, because unfortunately, people don't know
Yeah.
who's
I think,
involved with this and who
though,
isn't.
Parents stay in their silo.
Yeah.
So I encourage parents, you're standing at the soccer field. Listen, our kids are involved in so many different activities. Don't be afraid to share your concerns with other parents, because they are fighting the same battles that you're fighting at home. Always. Kids are not that different. So if at age 8, you don't want your son or daughter to ride their bike to 7-Eleven, and you call their closest friends, their parents don't want that either. So become a force, gather yourselves together, and, be humans.
Right. Talk
I
to
think
each
that
other.
we've
Talk to each
lost
other.
that mindset to share with other parents and say, hey, what's going on?
And social media
Social
plays
media,
into us losing the connectivity in the
exactly.
community.
My daughter's a teacher of preschool, and having gone through this experience, my daughter knows that as parents of young children, you have to keep that circle open.
Yes.
And so parents of young children need to speak about the education prevention side of this.
And this
as
is
well.
what you're doing with your grandchildren, because you were telling us
Yes.
a little
Yes.
bit about
With
that.
my
and
grandchildren,
sharing.
we, as grandparents and my grandchildren's parents, we made a conscious decision to be honest, age appropriately, as to what happened to their Uncle Timmy, who they never met.
Yeah.
as well.
Yes.
So we want to hear more about that and all the advocacy you're doing.
Yes.
But right now, we need to take a break on Family Comes First.
Welcome back to Family Comes First. Prescription painkillers are one of the most commonly abused substances, with 15 million people in our country using them. Abuse of these drugs has become increasingly common among suburbanites, likely due to their availability.
In 2010, 2 million people reported using prescription opioids non-medically for the first time. Think about that. That's nearly 5,500 people a day. We have been talking to Linda Ventura and Terry Kroll, who each tragically lost their sons to drug addiction. Welcome back.
Welcome back, and thank you for being here.
Now it's time to talk about your fierce advocacy
Yes.
and all the
What you
different jobs that you have.
Well,
Who would like to go first? Linda.
I very humbly got to introduce Governor Cuomo, and he knows who we are, that's for sure. So,
And who are we?
well, I do go up to Albany quite often, Terry also, and we have a third party from Buffalo, New York, who was also a fierce advocate. So we do a lot of work behind the scenes before anything, which is work that's really not seen, but that's necessary. So we keep our foot on the gas pedal.
So give an example.
Yeah. So, well, in 2014, 16 laws were passed because the families got together and they stormed Albany. So it was up until that point when treatment providers were fighting a great fight, but it was looked at as that was their business. Well, this is my business. My son is my business, and he's no longer here. So I did bring my son's ashes to Albany to make sure that they remembered the human price that is paid every single day. And Terry and I, unfortunately, belong to a club that no parent should ever belong to. Period. End of conversation. And unfortunately, we are forced to have to acknowledge people into our club on a daily basis.
Wow.
So there's nobody that can speak to another mom or dad or family if you haven't walked this road. Because there are no words that you can say. And there were many words spoken to me that I'm very fortunate that I didn't need an attorney because I would have punched them in the head. Because people think, they may think they're well-meaning, but
Right.
they're not.
Saying the wrong things.
Exactly right.
Or they approach it completely from the wrong place.
The wrong
Right.
place.
Yeah, I
And
know
in a
having
very
lost a child, and then the time we had with Teresa being so disabled, the comments and the
It's awful.
hurtful.
Yes, very hurtful.
Sometimes unintended, but hurtful.
But
nonetheless.
hurtful, and brings you back to a very bad place. So, it's unimportant what a child is lost to. It's still a loss that no one should ever have to experience.
So what is some of the most powerful legislation you've passed? And you're both with organizations that work.
Well, we're both with the same organization.
So let's talk about those. What organizations?
Originally, the advocating started with LICAD in 2010.
Right, LICAD stands
Long Island
for.
Council for Alcoholism and Drug Dependence.
Okay.
In 2010, when the doctor who led my son down the wrong path was arrested and tried, my husband and I attended the trial and the sentencing. And we were approached by the director of LICAD after that and asked if we would speak out. And I said yes. I knew that there was no one to speak out for me before this, so I did speak out. And we we started this train of families being able to speak with the treatment and professionals and the legal professionals to change some of these laws.
Yes.
And the first law that I worked on with Avi,
Yes.
before we met Linda, was the I-Stop law, which changed the way that opioids could be prescribed, that they have to be prescribed electronically, that the real-time database has to be checked, both at the doctor's office and the pharmacy. So, you know, when you start to see these laws change and you realize they're going to affect this horrible epidemic, that's when you realize, you know what, my voice means something.
Yes.
And my son's life and loss of life means something and is recognized as that we need to change
so
something, that we
important.
need these changes.
So important.
So over the past 6 or 7 years, we have seen quite a bit of change and quite a few laws changed to help this epidemic. But there's still a lot more to be
There's
done.
a lot more to do.
So we both belong to a group called Thomas's Hope.
Well,
Linda's the founder of
Hope
Thomas's Hope.
was a foundation that I started a year after Tom passed because I knew that I had to do something, and I needed a year just to really grieve and be still, you know, and be quiet. And started with Thomas's Hope. And in 2014, I know.
I'm sorry.
I know. It's hard to
We're not
imagine
quiet.
that
We are not
I was
quiet.
quiet for a year. In 2014, Thomas, unfortunately, was told on more than one occasion, he's not high enough for treatment. He needs to fail. He always needed to fail at something before he could get the appropriate level of treatment. So in 2014, there were 16 bills passed with accessing treatment. And the insurance companies, unfortunately, have found a way to shut doors yet again. So it's always a work in progress. So it's always a fight. You know, and it really is incomprehensible. If I had a heart attack and I went to the emergency room, they are not going to allow me to go home.
Right.
Yet we have people being revived with Narcan who are dead that are brought to the hospital. 20 minutes later, they're discharged. What do you think they're going to do? It's the only disease that doesn't get the attention that it so rightfully needs to. The
not being
appropriate level of care.
It's not being
at
treated
the-
medically.
No.
Exactly right.
They're
not a
being
medical
discharged
problem.
It's
with
not
no
a medical
follow-up.
Right.
There's no
Discharge,
follow-up.
no follow-up, no, you know.
The discharge papers say don't use drugs.
So
Don't use
how do we change
really.
that?
So in 2016, we stepped up yet again, and Narcan became readily available, and shifted yet again the insurance. You know, unfortunately, rehabilitation is a money-making proposition. So this year we were not successful in our jobs because patient brokering. There are actually people that go and interrupt treatment plans, interrupt Al-Anon or Naranon meetings, and prey on parents that are at their most vulnerable, and sending them out of state and sending them here to less than
Just for a
promising,
commission.
just for, you know.
The promise of
It's actually, you know, they
somehow
get paid.
resolving this problem, and there's big dollars.
Exactly.
Big dollars.
Right.
There's big dollars
You
here.
get paid a bed and a head and a bed.
Wow.
So it's patient brokering. So that we will be back strong on next year.
Great.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
And
Thank
now
God.
this year, fortunately, so last year, due to some great, you know, just stomping the floors in
Right.
Albany,
Yeah.
Thomas's Hope and Save the Michaels of the World, we got a $100,000 grant each, and we're going to be training family members that have lived experience so that we can go out into the communities and connect with those families that are just starting their walk so that they have someone.
To
Because we
help
need, if we don't start changing the way that the families handle their disease, and it's a family disease,
Right.
we are not going to be successful with recovery.
Talk to us about resolutions for recovery.
2 years ago, I started, fortunately, was given the opportunity to host a show. It was originally named Long Island in Crisis, and now it's Resolutions for Recovery. And you can find the show on thomashopefoundation.org.
Great.
They're all housed there. They're on YouTube. And
What do they talk about?
this past spring, the only thing I spoke about was prevention. because we came through the summer and parents need to have the information available. How do I keep my young children? You don't need to talk about drugs and alcohol, but we do need to start to talk about coping skills. We need to
What you
start
were saying.
talking
Yeah.
about problem solving with a 6-year-old and a 7-year-old. We need to start having those. They need to know that they can come to their parents with anything, and there'll be time set aside to solve. Not mom and dad solve the problem for them. Empower them
Right.
and give them the tools to solve their own problems.
So that they can make smart choices.
Yes.
Yeah, I have to say that Resolutions for Recovery, what an incredible show. The information you're sharing,
Yeah.
and so
Yes.
practical and helpful. We can't thank the two of you enough, really, for being the advocates that you are. And
Thank you.
You know,
incredible work you're doing.
your sons are alive
you wanna come to Albany
every
with us?
day, every day.
Yes.
Very
Yeah.
tempting. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Profound.
we've been networking, and we've networked today, too. So
Yes.
we'll be calling on you
We'll
soon.
continue.
Yes,
We will
absolutely.
support you,
Right.
and we will
Thank you.
support you.
Thank
and we'll
you so
put all your
much.
resources on our show.
Thank
and
you.
Vincent's
Thank you.
website.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
We're
you
going
for
to
the
take a
work.
break, and we'll be right back on Family Comes First. America's drug problem is now 10 times worse than in 1971, the year our country declared a war on drugs.
Yeah, this is a profound epidemic. With us today to discuss the show is our dear friend and spiritual advisor, Father Tony Stanganelli. Thank you, Father, for joining
Again,
us.
Well, thank you so much. Just having the opportunity of meeting these women who are just so incredibly open to allowing God's grace to take something that's so tragic in their own personal lives and allow it to become an opportunity now to step forward and to try to make a difference.
Yeah.
Not only in the name of their children, but also for others who somehow or another could find some kind of a solution or at least something.
And
that
not
could,
feel alone.
Yeah.
You know, Vincent said earlier that when you suffer the loss of a child like this, you go either one way or the other. You've
Yeah,
become an
and-
advocate. You know.
You know, it's for me, and I think for them, it's a healing process. It's a way of doing what you feel inside you need to do, and I think it's like the humanity of it all. You know, I see little girls who are disabled as Teresa.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I think they see the Timothys and the Thomases when they see these kids.
And they make lives better
Yeah.
than they would have been, as do you, with Tapa. Yeah.
Yeah. And that really is a very beautiful thing to see that grace that is at work in people's hearts, that God does give us the opportunities, doesn't always solve our problems, but gives us the strength not only to cope, but to try to make a difference in the lives of others.
Yeah, and to make real change. I mean, these women are making change both by advocating and legislative revisions and reforms, and also by being there for one another. You know, Terry being there for Eileen, you know, Linda being there for families that look and say, am I alone? You know, am I alone? We must be the only family going through this. And we can't tell anybody. And then you see women like this who say, yes, you can, and you must. You must talk about this, because that's how you'll be connected to this resource, or to Tony's, you know, to Talbot House, or to the church, or to wherever it is that you're going to find help in some form or another, can only be found by sharing.
Yeah.
So
I think it's the power of moms.
these-
Moms are
these
powerful.
Moms,
They are.
yeah.
Moms are powerful. We've had so many shows.
On
The one on the
military moms.
Military moms. Moms are powerful people.
They are.
Forces,
They are,
and
yes.
they are incredible advocates.
And for us to as guys to be able to recognize what the moms can
That's
do
right.
and what they are doing.
You know, as a mother, I can say you don't realize what's in you until you become a mom. Like you don't realize what you're capable of until someone is mean to your kid.
Right.
You know, whether it's bullying or whatever, and all of a sudden you see a part of yourself that you never knew you had, and these women certainly embody that.
Yeah. So, how do we turn the corner? How do we turn the corner on this epidemic in our country?
I think one of the things, and again, I don't have any solutions, I don't think anybody does, but I think culturally, we have such incredible high expectations, high pressure that kids experience now, certainly that I didn't experience as a child growing up in terms of expectations of success and what that means and what that looks like.
Pressure.
And the pressure to achieve that, and just the lack of downtime, the lack of just chill out time. And also what was said earlier in this show, in this segment, was about giving kids coping mechanisms and helping them, not just, but coaching them in that.
Teaching problem solving and resilience.
Right.
Good common sense.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
We've lost that.
Exactly.
Our younger people.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Father Tony, again, for all that you're doing out in the community and for sharing your experiences.
Thank you for making people aware and to bring this to the forum where things can happen.
And this is what we're dealing with. Drug abuse, specifically the opioid epidemic, has emerged as one of the worst drug crises in American history, and it is affecting our children. But as we saw here today, all hope is not lost. While it is certainly not simple nor easy, drug addiction can be treated, and that's what we've learned. For a list of the resources that we've discussed here and more information, please visit Vincent's law firm's website at vjrussolaw.com.
Thank you so much for all that you're doing as well with our shows.
It's a pleasure.
If our show saves one life, we are greatly indebted to our guests today. Thanks to all our viewers for joining us, and remember, family truly does come first.